Hello and welcome again to Why Fight, a conference on politics and ideology in militaries and armed groups, brought to you by the UCD Centre for War Studies. The papers in this panel examine armed conflict in the military as elements in political strategies. Our next speaker is Iaroslav Golubinov. Iaroslav Anatolievich is a senior researcher at the Institute of History and Archaeology of the Ural branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences. He is interested in the fortunes of the marginal groups operating in the political space between Reds and Whites during the Russian Civil War. In this talk, he examines a largely unsuccessful attempt of Komuch, the committee of members of the Constituent Assembly, to organize and sustain a combat-ready and loyal army in their base area in the Middle Volga. What was Komuch trying to achieve, and did it ever stand a chance?
Dear colleagues, I want to present my paper, Between Reds and Whites, the Russian Socialist-Revolutionaries government and its People's Army in 1918. The civil war in Russia was conducted mainly on the periphery of the Gone Empire. In some cases, the opposition between belligerent sides was not determined. The Reds, Bolsheviks, like Lenin, Sverdlov, Trotsky, and their comrades, fought for the international revolution and proletarian dictatorship. The Whites, Denikin, Kolchak, Wrangel, and others, tried to stop the Bolsheviks, but they had problems with the conception of the struggle's political aim. Both sides decided to control the whole territory of the late empire and used military government on the economy. I am interested in the history of some marginal political groups surviving in space between Reds and the Whites during the Civil War. Komuch, its full name was the Committee of Members of the Constituent Assembly in Samara, there is Middle Volga, was among them. Komuch emerged in June 1918 because of the conspiracy of Socialist Revolutionary Party members, which was supported when Czechoslovak Legion was raised against the Bolsheviks. Komuch kept for the 4 months a position as the most important center of anti-Bolshevik forces before the Red Army crushed it. Its remnants fell during Kolchak coup d'etat in November 1918. In the case of Komuch and its struggles with the Bolsheviks, I may emphasize two problematic fields which include at least 4 research questions. First of all, what kind of ideology did Komuch promote? The committee consisted of the Socialist Revolutionary Party members, but do they keep its ideology and political principles untouched during the Civil War? Bolsheviks changed many things in their political and military tactics, and so their enemies did. Was this changing successful? Second one. There was a tension between Komuch as a legislative body and the People's Army commanding officers. The main reason was the political position of the officers, far from left ideology. What alternatives could officers, for example, Colonel, later General Vladimir Kapil or his colleague Iosif Ilyin, offer divided Russian society tired of the war, fall of the economy and the civil disturbance? Why did the call of the patriotism remain unanswered? Third question. What did the People's Army do after Komuch flee from Samara and the Omsk government's fall because of Admiral Kolchak's coup d'etat? And fourth, what was kind of the commemoration constructed for Komuch and the People's Army? I need to say that the operational territory of Komuch in 1918 was not that very big compared to territory under Bolshevik control of White forces in Siberia. Nevertheless, Komuch became the first significant threat to the Soviet Republic. After the end of the Civil War, the Bolshevik party leaders tended to consider that the successful campaigns of the joint forces, People's Army and of Komuch and Czechoslovak Legion against the Bolsheviks in Volga region as part of the plan to strangle young Soviet Republic. The military confrontation was changed to the memorial and ideological dimension. Komuch and the Socialist Revolutionaries' legacy in Russia became a symbol of internal enemy whose ideas and political program were totally wrong. Bolsheviks tried to confuse people using various pejorative words, for example, учредилка. There is pejorative words for the name учредительное собрание. And they use it to define Komuch and emphasize the undoubtedly counter-revolutionary character of Samara government. In some points, Bolsheviks were right because Komuch tried to combine socialist slogans, which were not so radical as Bolshevik catchwords: all power to the Soviets, peace to the people, land to the peasants, factories to the workers, with more centrist position. Komuch wanted socialist revolutionaries to come to power, but it also stressed the need to revive the Constitutional Assembly. Komuch understood that they never win without the strong army and military support from Czechoslovak Legion. It was the cause of close unity between newly established People's Army of Komuch and the Legion. But political intention of officers in the People's Army were different. I suppose that members of Komuch and officers share one or two main ideas and political aims. They are highlighted with blue. First of all, restoration of Russia's membership in the Entente, abolition of the Brest-Litovsk Agreement, and continuation of the war with Germany and its allies by establishing an anti-German front in the Volga region. And second, restoration of parliamentarism, that is, the reconstruction of the Constituent Assembly. Komuch suspected officers of treason and feared a right-wing coup. It is had to reapproach Volsky, Klimushkin, or Brushvit, or another member of the committee in prejustice, because the army was hesitant and intent to desertion. Even detachments consisted of officer only. Politicians accused the army of lack of initiatives and desertion, but they had to state insufficient munitions, failure of mobilization, and local people's total indifference. General Boldarev emphasized in his memoir, they, local people, were even more deeply affected by the general aversion to any sacrifice to the state order, which was then sharply expressed by the townsfolk and villagers. In its turn, officers remarked political ambiguity of Komuch and its ignoring the discipline in the home front. Officers also did not trust Legion, and some of them suspected that the Legion would try to betray when it gets such an opportunity. Officer Iosif Ilyin wrote in his diary, "Czechs, Komuch, People's Army, and allies, they are all by themselves and no one connects." The ideal for many officers was an influential leader from the community, and because of that, they met with joy news about Kolchak's coup after Komuch defeat. So, instead of Bolsheviks, Komuch leader could not win the popularity among the army men, nor declare and establish a discipline and order. Officers did not want to die in the name of Socialist Revolutionary Party, and peasants did not want to join the army and try to escape. They gave all they wanted, the land, without a third party. Notable exclusions were volunteer cavalry detachment of Fortunatov, maybe the only member of Komuch who had a good reputation among the professional officers, and troops of Izhevsk weapons factories. After Komuch left Samara in October 1918 under the Red Army's pressure, some of the members of committee and its successor, Ufa Directory, were arrested and executed during the coup of Admiral Kolchak. Interesting, a few men from Komuch, including former leader Volsky, preferred to stay in Ufa and began to cooperate with Bolsheviks. The most battle-worthy troops, Kapel's force, passed to Kolchak and joined his army. In 1919 and 1920, remnants of the Komuch army died in battles or evacuated in China and Japan. None of them, except maybe Kappel's detachment, did not keep a sense of unity and comradeship. The memory of Komuch and the People's Army was almost erased after 1918. The winners, that is, the Bolsheviks, established their version of history, demolished graves and tombstones. There is an example of such a Soviet version of Samara history memorial plaque on the monument erected in 1977, 60 years jubilee of the revolution. Here in 1918, on the former cemetery, White Ucheridilovka counterintelligence shot the group of Red Army men who fought for the revolution. And we may say that it highly ideologized language, discourse for the depiction of the Civil War. And after fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, something was changed. And now the highly ideologized language of Soviet time turns to a speech appealing to the Second World War. Paradoxically, the memory of the Komuch and the Legion was in demand, and the People's Army was in demand in a different than in the Soviet era patriotic way. Criticism of commemorative practice is full of the rhetoric associated with the Second World War. The latter is a favorite historical period of the current Russian leadership, since it became an ideological glue that secured Russian society. The use of the high ideologized language of the Second World War in describing the Civil War, for example, Czech legionnaires are depicted as fascist, indicates an expansion of the borders of memory of the conflict of 1939-1945. On the one hand, it helps to actualize, since the war is still very relevant for both the authorities and society, the events of century ago, which are already thoroughly forgotten and practically not reflected in the everyday life through the names of city, place, and monuments. On the other hand, addressing Komuch and legions and People's Army memory using the terms of the Second World War leads to the unambiguous demonization of the anti-Bolshevik forces. It consolidates the political split of the Soviet era into there and outsiders, leaving little chance for the formation of recent memory of political compromise and reconciliation. And now I may conclude that Komuch could not shape a proper mobilization mechanism in Samara. That's why politicians from Komuch did not share common ideas with officers from the People's Army and cooperated with them because of the necessity. Also, people from Komuch domination territories did not want to fight. Peasants as well as city dwellers of all classes. Because of that, Komuch tried to provide socialist revolutionary politics, but it was impossible during the Civil War. It had enemies from the left as well as the right. After the fall of Komuch, Soviet politics of memory fixed the image of weak, ambiguous, and very unstable Komuch Ucheridilovka for the decades. And now Komuch and the People's Army is also under critics and have no chance in the nearest future for the commemoration.